Ooh, the sun is down. The people are asleep. It's time to gather around the campfire while all the creatures are out. It's another story to tell. I guess the first story to tell,
The
really.
first story. Yeah.
The first
Well,
story to
oh, this
tell.
this campfire is really warm. Oh, here, my hands over here on
Nice
the
and
campfire.
nice and toasty.
Yeah. Nice
You
and
gotta warm
toasty.
up. It's it's dark out. It's just enough
Mm.
light to see just in front of you, just to see, maybe some spooky things off in the distance. There's plenty of spooky things out there.
There are.
There's
Mm.
everywhere you turn. Sometimes you can just sort of disguise them as maybe something that you're familiar with, even if you
Hmm.
don't really know. And I think we have a perfect story to tell of that kind of
Mm.
thing.
Tell me a
Uh,
story.
it's
Tell me the story.
a nice story. It's spring of 1967.
Hmm.
We're in West Virginia. Just, nice quiet town. You have teens just doing typical teen mischief things.
Hmm.
You know, you know how that stuff is.
I know.
Uh, yeah, license to drive, nowhere to go. It's spring break,
Hmm.
so what are they going to do tomorrow?
A party. I don't know.
Not much to do, but hang out.
Hmm. Just enjoy
You know,
themselves. Yeah.
enjoy themselves. Hang out at the convenience store. You know, maybe they would like to try and trick somebody into maybe buying them some beer, have a nice day out. But it's a small town. It's not huge, but it's not super small, but small enough to where, you know, everyone knows who everyone is. So they're just
Hmm.
a little too anxious to even ask. They don't know. Their parents will find out.
Oh,
So,
parents.
just gonna load up on Coke and snacks and enjoy the nighttime. And again, just cause general mischief. Uh, it's late. It was late, very very late. The kind of late where you have to sneak back in.
Hmm.
You don't want to wake
Hmm.
up mom and dad. Things won't go well for you if you wake them up. Uh, they're just driving, just directionless, nowhere to go. Dark, small stretch of road.
Hmm.
The kind of stretch of road where it could be minutes until you see another car coming or going. Just minutes passing by. Every sound off in the distance makes you look, but you're not too worried. There's small critters out, owls, herons, squirrels,
Squirrel.
cranes. It's it's quiet and dark where everything can scare you, but you're not necessarily worried. But suddenly, the brakes are slammed. You hear swearing flying overhead, as big as a man. You've seen some birds flying around that are pretty big,
Hmm.
but not this big. Huge wingspan, big as a man. A few months ago, there was a story going around. You can't quite remember the details, but you just remember there was a story. What was it exactly?
Hmm.
Was red eyes? Was that something? But it couldn't be a bird. It's just too big to be a bird. Is it a man? That'd be weird, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But
They don't fly.
they don't fly. You stop the car. You've stopped the car. You've pulled over to the side of the road, and you're looking. You're looking around because you see it dive off into the woods. And as it's dark though, again, it's a small stretch of road. Uh, no lights. The only lights there are the headlights, which you've turned yours off at this point.
Hmm.
Car
Hmm.
comes on oncoming traffic. Lights up the tree line just enough to see at the top of the trees two glowing red eyes staring back at the road, and with an outline of it looks like a bird. Are those wings?
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know.
Hmm.
The car drives out of the car that was coming in oncoming traffic drives out, and the lights disappear. You lose sight of the creature that was in the trees. You hear twigs snap trees rustling. You hear wings flapping, moving an incredible amount of air. You all just run back to the car. Doors slam. You fumble for the keys. You start the car up. You speed off. As you're speeding off, you still see in the rearview mirror those 2 red lights glowing, following you, staring. It just stops. You get away. You see it set down in the middle of the road. But still, 2 eyes just growing smaller and smaller and smaller until they just disappear. In the papers the next morning, hidden deep into the paper, are more stories of the Point Pleasant Mothman sightings. Wherever those, just multiple people across the region spotted another sighting of this creature that has been just sort of seen and gone in a flash. But again, it's all buried deep into the headlines, deep into the paper, with the headline dominating it of a rather significant semi-truck accident, a rollover on the same stretch of road that you were just on last night.
Welcome, everybody, to the very first episode of A Dark Figure Ahead, a show dedicated to cryptids and all the insane, wild stories that we hear about them. We're going to deep dive into a different cryptid each week in this limited series, where we're saying limited because we've only got 1 season sort of figured out. And so we're going to take you on this journey with us as we kind of go into discussing a different cryptid or a different creature of the dark every week. I am Dali Dimovski, and joining me is JJ Holder.
It is JJ. It is
JJ. Actually, you're not joining me. We're at this campfire. We're camping.
We're camping. We're breaking social protocols. And
we are. Yeah. Actually, there's a plastic divider right somewhere over here, wherever my hand is. I'm not.
Yeah. Actually, if you're watching the live stream, there really is a nice, perfect.
Yeah. JJ. So we're here at this campfire, and just kind of telling spooky stories. We thought it'd be a great idea to.
I wish I was wearing a jacket. It's cold.
Yeah, well, I got my zip up. Right here. And it's kind of weird. You can see behind me there's some kind of spooky-ish lights as well. So, yeah. So we're gonna talk about the Mothman. Right now, I think it's
one of the most pop culturally significant cryptids, probably. Like, it's a top 5, I think.
It's a top 5, yes, and it's gained a lot of kind of pop culture influence over the last couple decades here. Let me tell you a little bit about the Mothman. That story, like you mentioned, starts in the 60s, 1966, November 15th. Actually, two couples in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, on that cold night. The Scarberries and the Mallets were out driving their car. I don't know where they were coming from, but as the story goes, they're driving past a military site on the outskirts of Point Pleasant. They called it like the TNT site. That was the verbiage, the description.
Yeah, because it was a military arms manufacturing kind of location.
Okay. Yeah, munition site. Okay.
Yeah, for World War II.
Oh, okay, and it's true. It's only 20 years after World War II. Yeah. So. And when they thought they saw, this giant red-eyed man in front of them, and I think they said like a 10-foot wingspan, they started following their car. I mean, really similar. I mean, that story that you freaked me out with, that story. And it was following them, right? And so they called the police. They got in touch with the authorities, and the authorities, started hearing more of these stories. There were more sightings of this thing, and they said, no, it's just all these experts, police, firemen, they said it's just maybe it's a heron or a crane. The sandhill crane was starting to make an appearance there, not really native to the area. Maybe the red.
And it's like something like the crane, where if it's something that's not native, it's definitely something you haven't seen before. So trying to make sense of it sometimes makes things not make sense in a weird. It's just for some people. So,
yeah. And we kind of associate things that we see without we associate things that we see with almost instinctively with supernatural ideas before we sit back and actually scientifically figure it out. In this case, red eyes. Oh, red eyes. The police and everybody said it's just a reflection of your your headlamps in this in this crane's or in this heron's the eyes of the heron. So that's where the red eyes are, but don't worry. But there were a lot more sightings after that, several sightings after that. And I think there was even sightings all the way through to like the next year, the following year, November, December, until these sightings started to pick up. People started seeing this Mothman, which they kind of nicknamed it, up until December of 1967. What happened in December of 1967?
In December of 1967, the Silver Bridge collapse in West Virginia was a thing where that's where the Mothman sort of gets a different sort of supernatural twist to it, like
a power somehow.
Before it was just a creature, a Bigfoot, kind of thing. Just
a Bigfoot. I like
that. Kind of thing where it's just like, it's a thing that's just out there and it exists. But now it also gets this supernatural twist where it's like, it was seen around the bridge in the days leading up to the big collapse where 46 people died on this bridge collapse. And
one of the bigger, one of the bigger tragedies in West Virginia area.
Yeah, especially, it's like what Point Pleasant, I was looking at, like right now is it's place of like under 5,000 population. So it's not a big place.
So everybody knew somebody on that bridge.
Yeah. And so now it's, the Mothman is linked to, horrible disasters are going to happen. That's when
something terrible is coming.
Terrible is going to happen. And pretty much there's been like, and even weird ones. I don't know if you looked up any of the
I did a little bit, a couple things,
like some of them were like, it was seen near Chernobyl.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
all right.
It made its way to Russia for some reason.
I saw the Twin Towers one. They showed the Mothman flying around during 9/11.
9/11. There was a couple of Russian ones.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, there's a couple of Russian ones. It's like they picked up on it, like for whatever reason. I mean, it became national. I mean, it was just, but a lot of these are, a couple of, there's some that are just so compelling. Like the idea of the Mothman and its sort of visual description is very striking. So it travels more, because some of them don't. There's a lot of weird ones that until you start reading about this stuff, like, I've never heard of this. It's super regional. So, but because they also not necessarily compelling, because it's like, oh, it's a shadowy figure that watches you from the mountains or something. Like, that's not particularly compelling. That's just a creepy dude in the mountains or something.
Right, exactly.
A man-sized bird or moth. I don't know. The Mothman part of it's funny to me, because it's like it's always described bird-like, but
let's talk about what it supposedly looks like, right? So it's this big gray, hairy, some sort of hair or something. What, it was like a 10-foot wingspan.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I think bigger. I think it's the bird has a 10-foot wingspan. Like,
okay,
like the heron has a 10-foot wingspan, or the crane or something.
Whatever,
But like if it's a 6-foot tall person with wings,
bigger wings.
the wingspan, in order to get that kind of mass up off the ground, unless again it's a supernatural alien or something,
magic,
it would have to be significantly more. I mean, your arm span is more than.
Yeah, you're right. Some basketball players have that, right?
Yeah,
it's true. It's true.
So, and it's the eyes. It's always the eyes.
It's those eyes.
It's in every picture of it. You see like just a kind of shadowy outline, but they really focus on the eyes. That's the thing that's most striking about it.
It's the big giant red eyes. But I think what's also kind of striking, you mentioned, is it weirdly doesn't have what they would call a traditional head. Right? Yeah, it's sort of like a mound or built into the chest.
A lot of the descriptions of it, and I'm going to show you what
I'm drinking coffee here in the woods right now.
In the woods. When I hear a lot of descriptions of it, it sounds a lot like the old, I guess still modern comic book character of Man Thing. Not Swamp.
Right, yeah.
Not
Man
Swamp
Thing.
I wish there was I guess I could just.
You can pass a picture to me right here, virtual picture around this campfire, and we can, we can share.
I have no idea how to drop a picture into this stupid campfire.
You can just do the share screen.
I'm I'm just gonna share the screen. That makes
or
it.
share, or the book. Let's say it's a
Yeah.
book that we have in front of us that we're looking
Yeah.
at.
I'm
So
just gonna.
you have this big
Just,
thing. Oh, there we go.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead. You want me to add it? Let me
Yeah.
add this.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
The man thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's kind of. Oh, it's burning. Well, be
Yep,
careful so it doesn't
yep,
burn the.
don't burn poor man thing.
Don't burn
Yeah, it has a lot of that. I mean, it's got the big glowing red eyes. It's got the big kind of shapeless head that's sort of in the
Sure.
works whenever you see the pictures of the man thing and the Mothman. Man thing came out I think in the 70s. So if anything, it was inspired by the Mothman more than the other way around. But yeah, visually, it has when you see some of the drawings of it, it looks a lot like that if it had wings.
Yeah, and I'm going to show a picture right now of this is an artist's impression because there you go, right there. There are no supposed actual photographs or video that people can confirm of the Mothman. It's all hearsay, but you can see it's about 6-ish feet tall, and it's just dark and hairy and just bright red eyes. And
I do like the little picture to give you the size of scale of the little dude next to
exactly.
the Mothman, like just giving a little like howdy wave to the Mothman.
There. Hey, I'm about this height, and the Mothman's about to eat me. What's kind of interesting is in this picture, this artist looked like he drew some hands on here, where in a lot of cases the Mothman is spoken of as not having arms, right?
Yeah.
It's not
having it's arms, it's the wings. Yeah.
It's just wings, and birds are like that, right? Birds, which is that tie to that heron, right? The crane or the heron.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this really weird sort of shape, this kind of otherworldly shape, and I looked hard to try to find sounds or anything that the Mothman would make, like if there were firsthand accounts, and the closest I could find is sort of like this prolonged record scratch or screech sound, and I think that's that whole. So with the eyes and sort of the head proportions, the body proportions, there's that whole owl, and now the sound, obviously, the whole kind of owl connotation that some people are putting to it. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting.
It's funny too. The creature itself doesn't seem to be an agent of chaos in any way. It's just sort of like a harbinger for most cases these days. Yeah, because it's never seems to be. You don't see it like attacking anybody. You hear it like you hear stories of like my dog went missing or stuff, but you never really hear. You hear people like when they get near it get distressed.
So that's another interesting thing. Yeah, tell me about that. What sorts to happen like around him?
it will do the nice, the ever classic, like the radio signals are getting scrambled or staticky or electromagnetic resonance of some sort that a lot of these weird things have, and people get confused and sort of lose track of where they're at, or they like lose track of time, and a lot of that alien kind of stuff as well. Because again, there's UFOs nearby, so there's sort of this. It could be an alien kind of situation, and not a creature, not a creature in a traditional sense, so much as it is extraterrestrial, which.
There's.
I like the idea. I like the idea of it being a lost creature more than it just being an alien. Because being an alien is boring. Because anything could be an alien. That's just it's sort of cheap.
it does. It's kind of an easy way out. But there is one that I thought was, and the same with the supernatural, because you hear it's supernatural. I like the interdimensional being idea. That's like a whole level of craziness out there that actually is kind of it's an interesting way to kind of talk about the Mothman. It comes from another dimension.
So I love the SCP Foundation. It's so SCP-2901 is the Mothman, and it treats it like an interdimensional being, and it has other. Well, let's see. I will screen share this too, because I think it's kind of interesting. Let's do SCP-2901.
There we go.
It's like, oh dang it.
Let me get out of the fire there. There we go.
It's got some cool
What's this SCP Foundation? Oh, I see. Okay.
It's the SCP Foundation is basically a writing, it's like creative writing thing, where it's all done in character of this fictional foundation that SCP is secure, contain, protect, and so SCP-2901 is its designation. That would be its instead of giving it the name Mothman, it's they don't want to assign a name to it. So and it's just all of these entries are done sort of in character of this is the containment protocol for this creature and like the history behind it, where they found it, where they did. And it's not necessarily have to be a creature, it could be an item, it could be a place, it could be a concept. And it's and so a lot of what we would know as cryptids, people will do creative story writing on some of these. So, there's Mothman, there's Bigfoot, there's Loch Ness, there's, Area 51 kind of stuff. There's Bermuda Triangle. There's things like that. Anything that's sort of, supernatural, has a tilt to it, will find its way on there with a lot of other stuff. There's the famous one that is the statue that doesn't move unless it's like you break line of sight with it. That includes blinking. So if you blink, it'll charge at you and will kill who's ever there.
It's a very Doctor Who has a whole
it's the angels. And it's that, and it's like video games have been made out of some of this stuff, and it's all so, and like a lot of that like Channel Zero stuff and things like that are based off of this. Control, the video game Control, is completely inspired by the SCP Foundation, because the Foundation and Control is basically the same thing as this. They've got these weird anomalous things that they can't explain, and they're the ones that keep them out of the public, and that's what SCP. And so there's a really good Mothman one, and I just like the picture that goes with it. That's really all I was sharing. The sort of drawn picture of
it. Yeah, it's kind of a really cool look there, and that's what you think of. That's what you, in the back of your head, what you think of when you hear about the Mothman. It's kind of this whole kind of otherworldly big eyes. And I think what was kind of interesting was it doesn't seem to directly attack anybody, or it doesn't seem to directly do anything. It just shows up and then bad stuff happens.
It seems like the Marvel comics, like the Watchers kind of thing. Like they just kind of exist. They're not interfering in anything, but they're just watching in a lot of instances and just being intimidating. It's unknown. Like, it was there when the Silver Bridge collapsed, but it doesn't really say what that means other than it was there. It's blamed on it, but nobody really says how it's fault, like why it would do that, or if it even did it. It's just, it was there and then it happened. So it's a lot like the Nostradamus stuff, where it's like, if you can figure out, like if you see it, maybe you can figure out that something bad's going to happen in this area or something. But at the same, but as is with these stories, obviously you don't know it was there until it's already happened, and then it's just
and it's too late.
And it's too late.
It's too late. Or you can maybe associate bad things happening to, I think I saw a Mothman,
And I mean, like, in terms of this, like the Mothman thing in general, like the original Mothman stuff, I think when we're talking about sort of creating this show, we're like, stories are probably are the cornerstone of language, of civilizations. Right. Everything is a story. Everything is built around a story in some way, shape, or form, whether it be, your cultural belief systems, or Aztecs and their beliefs and stuff. Like, everything's a story. Everything's got some sort of history to it, and sometimes it's just as simple as a spooky story to tell to keep kids out of the cornfields at night, or sometimes it's just you saw something, or something was seen decades ago, before you understood fully what, like, how animals can exist that you've never seen before. And like in the case of the Mothman, it's a crane that was not indigenous to this area, that wasn't seen, that you saw in the middle of the night, and it creeped you out. Whereas when it comes later and it's the bridge situation, that stuff's scary.
Yeah.
And that stuff happens because you can't really predict that kind of thing. Like, it's somebody's fault. The bridge had its, wear and tear and, had some, problem areas. But like at the same time, it's just, you need to blame something. And you already kind of have something you can blame because less than a year ago, the stories of a monster have sort of popped up. So instead of sort of just accepting that sometimes these tragedies are inevitable and just happen, for some people, it's just easier to just accept that, something out of your control, but also kind of like a boogeyman to blame it on. It's like, I can't control this monster, but it's a face I can attach to something that's not just like, it wasn't you don't want it to be a terrorist attack. When it's the Mothman was responsible, it can help the brain cope for some people. And sometimes those stories can be intriguing enough to gain book deals and feature film properties.
So, I mean, let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's come of the Mothman. Obviously, a lot of people heard about the Mothman because of the book, right? There was a book written, I think it was like 99, somewhere around there. The Mothman Prophecies by
the book was 75.
I'm sorry, 75. Yes. John Keel. And then the Richard Gere movie was 2002. There you go. I'm sorry. So that movie, all of a sudden, everybody got, and I think the bridge is a part of that movie too.
Yes,
right?
The climax of the movie is the bridge collapse.
Yep. Sorry to ruin it for everybody.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
For anybody that might be listening around us in this campfire, and so people started.
I had that movie poster. I don't know.
Did you
it was
really?
One of those things.
Oh, cool.
I got it for free from like the local drugstore that had a video rental thing inside of it. And it was just one of those like, you write your name down, and once it comes down, you get the poster, and that's one of the few posters that I ended up getting.
Cool.
It's like the Mothman Prophecies and From Hell. Keanu.
Back when Keanu wasn't, So I mean, there have been only like a couple Mothman movies. I think it was the Mothman Prophecies, and I'm looking at fandom.com has a good list in there. Mothman, there was like a Sci-Fi Channel movie in 2010. Yeah. That was it for like movies. There have been like a few various TV episodes. I think the X-Files, one of their seasons had like a mention of the Mothman, and then it was in like, I think Monster Quest. But
there's been several History Channel things about
Ancient Aliens probably, but and obviously books. There's been a lot of books, but the where the Mothman is sort of really kind of came into his own. I'm not sure, in pop culture has actually been. I mean, the internet, of course, but video games. Video games. There are the Mothman has appeared in a lot of things, from a couple Castlevania games, Dawn of Sorrow. Mm-hmm. The Mothman is in there, and is also in Portrait of Ruin. By the way, two fantastic video games. They're great to play on spooky nights. I think the Shin Megami Tensei series has the Mothman that appears as a demon that the characters can kind of use as an ally. And GTA San Andreas, supposedly the Mothman is like out in the desert somewhere, right? Yeah. And even Fallout 76, there's a Mothman can be summoned.
Yeah, because it takes place in West Virginia, so it makes sense that you would do that.
And so there's, it's been kind of literally floating around to the point where, and this is, I mean, they have the festivals everywhere, right? There's the Mothman Festival in West Virginia, in Mason County, Pleasant Point, Point Pleasant, but where just last September 22nd, 2019, West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin posted a picture standing in front of the Mothman statues and wishing everyone in Mason County a happy Mothman Festival Day. And President Donald Trump retweeted that. He says, great job. I don't even think he really understood what was happening. But so the Mothman made its way all the way up to,
I love that statue because it is incredibly gaudy, so cool. But I absolutely love it.
Yes, a fantastic statue.
It's funny that they lean into it as much as they do, considering that it's technically a tragic figure, because like people associate it with a bridge collapse that killed almost 50 people. Like it's like I'm from an area where there was a very famous bridge collapse, with the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. That it would be like celebrating, like
Oh,
having
geez.
erecting a broken statue in the middle or something. Like
Unbelievable.
there is, although loosely tied to that would be that there is a well-known like giant octopus that lives in the wreckage of the old bridge down there because it's a good living ground, and it's so
Sure.
and it's it's protected too, so you just can't go down there. And so giant octopus lives there. Yeah, basically the hockey mascot lives underneath the bridge down there.
So there have been there's been a lot of sightings the last few years of
it's popped back up. It disappeared. Like it did
Mhm.
its first initial year, and then it was just sort of like your typical sort of sightings and stuff. Like it's definitely not anywhere on the level of like a Bigfoot,
Right.
or a chupacabra or something
Sure.
like that.
But yeah, it's coming back, and I mean the festival is great, which I think is really funny. It's again, you mentioned it's this tragic figure, and it's sort of like Mason County kind of treats it as sort of like their Roswell. They have like all the little gimmick things, and like you said, it sort of died away. The festival kept going, but the actual Mothman sightings just sort of disappeared and dried up until really the last few years. I'm going to read
2016 there was like new photographs.
And you can search for these online all over the place. There's some really interesting ones, some that look like they're clearly photoshopped, but others there's some that look like kites.
There's some good convincing ones out there.
You
can, like there's always the couple that make you look like okay.
Here's I got a couple stories here from Thought Catalog. They've sort of rounded up a few stories here. So this one, I'm just going to go right into this story. It says, I was enjoying an evening with my girlfriend and taking a well-deserved break from my studies. We decided to go out and enjoy the unusually warm weather that we were having and go for a walk. As we walked towards a community park near the campus, I'm assuming this is like a school area, we were talking about our classes when a commotion amongst a group of people caught our attention. As we looked toward the group of about 4 to 5 people, something caught my eye, and I looked up to see this thing fly overhead. It looked like a man with wings, flew about 10 to 12 feet above us, was perfectly silhouetted against the evening sky. And that's something you hear a lot about the Mothman sightings, is that you see the dark and you see the silhouette and you see the eye. You don't see features. You don't see it. It's just glide.
Basically what you can tell is like a Batman-esque logo of the Mothman flying around. It's just wings, amorphous body with 2 glowing eyes on it. And it's impressive that and it's consistent. That's the consistent look for it. It's always just man-sized and sort of non-decipherable body.
It's I think to me that is what makes it sort of that featureless. The featurelessness makes it terrifying because
it's that eldritch terror thing where it's like you never you can't really tell what you're looking at, because it's always at night and it's and you just can't see it, and that's sort of scarier in a lot of ways. Like even if it was a real bird, just staring at it and not being able to tell what it is like, I know it's a bird, but I can't tell where the bird begins or ends. I just know it's wings and it's moving really fast.
So what do you feel? What do you think the Mothman really is? Do you think it's something that people actually saw, or is it something folks have been making up?
I definitely think the initial initial sightings of the Mothman was just a particularly large breed of bird. It was probably a crane, like you were saying. It's not that it wasn't from the air, it's not like it doesn't come to the area, but it's not common in the area.
It's not native,
and not knowing what you're seeing. It's how it is when you look outside and you see a bug that you've never seen before, and the first reaction is take a picture and hit up the end. It's does anybody know what this weird ass bug is? Because I've never seen it before. Is this a new species? I don't know.
Be terrified of it, and everyone replies back, "Don't worry."
Is this thing poisonous? I don't know. I've never seen this bug before, and they're just it's just a water bug. It's okay or something. But that and it's night. It's always night.
It's night. It's always night.
That stuff's scary at night. No, even the most
Yes.
mundane thing. You look into the backyard and you see your dog back there, and it's just glowing eyes off in the distance. I know it's my dog. It's still creepy.
The darkness amplifies that. It amplifies the. I mean, it could be, like you said, it could be your puppy, but that glowing eyes, the reflection of a flashlight or a headlamp makes anything turn terrifying. And and obviously cranes and big birds and bigger birds look like, they still look like dinosaurs out there.
And owls have kind of that sort of they have interesting movement.
Yeah,
So,
owls do.
That could also be. Yeah. You see an owl off in the distance. You know how their heads can turn and stuff. Like, it could be really unsettling if you just only see the eyes off in the distance, because all of this relies on minor lighting, because it just takes a little bit of light to make the eyes glow, but it doesn't. But the second you put a whole headlight on it, it's like, oh, it's blinded. And the glow doesn't, the eyes don't really glow the same way anymore. It's like, you take an old flash photo out in the distance and you get that weird, creepy glow of eyes. It's the red part, because you know how it is. If you take a picture of a dog or a cat, it's that green glow. It's red's a creepy color. So
it's the camera flash color is red.
So you know how it is. You take a picture of somebody and you get that red eye effect, and it makes it look like they're a demon all of a sudden. They're possessed.
And what's kind of interesting about that is that cameras these days, digital cameras, color correct, so they know to fix the red eye automatically. You don't see that with the flash.
So I think the initial one was probably a bird. I think once it became pop culture, it just became how people telling stories. It became folklore. It became part of the the culture of the West Virginia area. Yeah, I think everyone's got a story, because it's fun to have a story. It's like everyone trying, it's like what we're doing. We sit around the campfire and tell each other scary stories and try to one up one another or something. Everyone's got a story. And the bridge one, again, like I said earlier, I think it's just people trying to put a face to something tragic that it's hard to sort of cope with. That's a lot of people in a small town dying over a simple accident.
Sure.
And that's scary, and I can understand that, but it's outside of that. What does that make the Mothman? So it was there and the bridge collapsed. So did it cause the bridge to collapse? Is it a harbinger of doom? Is it a horseman of the apocalypse? What is the there is no secondary, it was there. That's it. That's the extent.
Exactly. How did it? Yeah. Well, JJ, it's all terrifying. I mean, I think it's a bird. I think it's an owl. But I mean, that would freak the heck out of me, even if I saw it. Even if a big bird.
If I saw a big bird in the middle of the night, Big Bird, the Sesame Street Big Bird.
If you saw Big Bird in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night, with just being barely illuminated by your headlights and two bright red glowing eyes, I would be freaked out.
I think we've figured it out that Mothman is actually Big Bird.
It's Big Bird. It's Jim Henson stalking the countryside in the 60s.
Well, JJ, that story left me terrified. Where can people hunt you down? Where can the Mothman hunt you down?
The Mothman can take a long walk off a short pier if he wants to find me. I don't want to deal with the Mothman. But everyone that's not Mothman related can see me at _J on Twitter and DisneyCompendium.com.
And you can find me at Dali Dimovski on Twitter. You can find this podcast and others like it on SideQuesting.com, on the SideQuesting Podcast Network. Maybe that's what we'll call it.
Others like it is not.
This is the only good one we have. Thank you for joining us talking about the Mothman. But hey, JJ. Hey, JJ, gather around the campfire.
Oh, gather.
Because I have a story. Because
you got to go.
Yeah,
there you go.
So
I'll never learn camera directions.
It was a night much like this, and I lived downtown in Detroit, and I've got a story about something that happened to me.
Oh.